Hi, everybody. A very warm welcome to our podcast here in India. Today we have with us Allison Task, all the way from USA. Welcome, Allison. Welcome to our podcast from India. It's a
Thank
great
you so much
pleasure,
for having me.
an honor to have you here. Allison, I would request you to please give a brief introduction about yourself before we begin this podcast.
Sure. I think you have found me and you are interested in me because I am a life coach.
Yes.
I have been coaching for 15 years. I see clients privately in my office and now virtually. I predominantly work with people who are in transition, whether that's career transition, transitioning from being a student to being a working adult, transitioning to being a parent. I tend to work with a lot of people who are turning 50 and maybe don't like the life that they have and want to go for something different.
Wonderful. So, Alison, what made you choose this career, life coach?
Yeah, well, I think it's always been a part of me. I'm almost 50 myself, and I think the career wasn't available when I went to college. So I needed some time for the career to happen. So when I went to college, I studied human development. I was very interested in that, but I was not interested in going into therapy. I thought I would be better suited to work with people who are well than in need of healing in that way. So about 20 years after I graduated from college, I had a career working in .com. And as a cooking professional, I had written cookbooks and appeared on cooking shows. And that was a lot of fun. But I went by a university near me called New York University. And I saw they had this continuing education program in coaching. And when I read about coaching, that it helps people make significant life change when they feel stuck, and that it works with people who are well, but just want to change and feel stuck and unable to make that change without support, but that I could work with someone and be trained to help them make significant changes on their own. That sounded, honestly, it was, I've had moments like this just a couple times in my lifetime where I'm like, oh, this is it. This is that thing. And I immediately enrolled, and I was thrilled to do so. It was a great program. And during my training at NYU, I trained with David Rock and Meryl Moritz, other people who've really elevated the coaching field. And it was a fantastic experience. I started taking clients as I was graduating, right? I took some pro bono clients as part of my coursework and launched my practice from there. When I was first coaching, probably the first 10 years, I was coaching virtually, mostly hearing clients on the phone. And I was doing it part-time while I was still doing my culinary work. And then after I started a family, I decided just to do this full-time. So I have an office in Montclair where I see people. Now, of course, I'm seeing people virtually and outside. And it's been a no look back kind of choice. It's a calling. It's a fabulous career. I am thrilled with every new client I get to make. Because as a coach, and I'll take a breath at some point, I promise you, because as a coach, I tend to work with people in 3 to 6 month increments, right? I work with people typically on very short-term programs. I get to meet 80 to 120 new people every year that I work with, right? Because I'm able to, have people rolling off and starting anew. So it is a thrill and an honor to attract people, to meet people, and to see people make distinct change. Just last night, I received a thank you note from a person who I worked with a year and a half ago, because the job that we helped him transition to, there was a big event and a ceremony, and he was recognized as the key player in his company. He manages a team of 10 people he had never managed before. He is so in the right place for him. And so I'll get notes like this all the time, right? I haven't heard from someone for a couple of years and I get these notes, and it's such an extraordinary joy to be able to facilitate a person to move toward a better life.
So, Allison, you are saying that you are focusing on people who are about 50 years of age. So, why do you think people in this age group they require more, coaching as compared to people who are in the 20s or who are in the 30s?
That's a great question. And I don't focus on that age group. I focus on people in transition. So there are basically 4 quadrants where I see clients. I see people in their 20s who are transitioning to adulthood. I see people in their 30s and 40s who are transitioning to parenthood. I do see people in their 50s. There seems to be something between 48 and 52 where people are questioning and reorienting, and I'll talk more about that. And then I do see people as they're preparing to retire, right? As they're winding down, they've got 3 to 5 years till retirement. Maybe they want to align with their spouse on their vision. Maybe they actually realize they don't want to retire and they love their work, but they've been gearing up to retire for a couple of decades and now they have to change that thinking. So those are the 4 quadrants. And I usually work with people in the first 2 quadrants more than anything.
So I have a question here. I'm sorry to interrupt you. So what is, according to you, the time when people hit midlife crisis?
Right. It's a midlife reorientation. I think at this point, when you hit this, I'm thinking of a client who I just was introduced to last night. When you're in that 48 to 52-year-old zone and you've been telling yourself, well, things will change. Sometimes people have been tolerating situations that they don't like. And finally, they see that big number and they're like, enough of this career that I don't like, enough of feeling like I'm tolerating my life, enough of unmet goals. And what they'll say to me is, I have been trying to make a change on my own, and it's not working. I want someone to hold me accountable. I want to see your face week to week and know that the promises I made you last week, you're going to ask me next week, what's going on with those things? I just want a partner. Also, I like to work with clients and have fun and have humor and laugh and not take things so seriously. And that all helps because, my clients at 50 are in 2 groups. Either they have a family, a home, expenses, or they're single and they have extraordinary freedom. So when you have so much freedom, sometimes you can have option paralysis and you don't know which option to choose, right? Because you can do whatever you want. And if you have 4 kids and a mortgage and private school expenses, that's a lot of obligation and that can keep you stuck, right? So you have.
So what exactly do you bring, make a difference in your life? So suppose I'm 48 and I'm coming to you with a not so good career, not so happy married life. So as a coach, you instill faith in myself, you boost my confidence. What exactly do you do? Make me think differently? Because ultimately I have to solve my own problems. And I may be from IT. I'm from Bangalore, so I'm using the word IT. So you will not know my organizational structure. So how exactly would you do that?
Great. So what I'm hearing you say are 2 things are, hey, you, Allison, you're not an expert in my field. I'm an expert in my field. And you, Allison, you're not going to make the change, right? I have to do the things. So what is it that you do that suddenly helps me in my expertise and enact this change? So that comes through very powerful questioning. I am very clear that I'm not going to do the work for you. In fact, when people will give me reviews and they'll say, it's going to be a lot of work. And I tell clients, expect 5 to 10 hours of work, whether that's thinking work or action work. Expect to do work week to week, 5 to 10 hours a week minimum. My goal is to ask deep and penetrating questions that get you to think differently. If you're thinking around a circle, I'm going to ask questions that get you out of that circle. And I know I have it when a person really stops and they'll say, I love it when a person takes a pause to organize a new thought because I know now we're getting somewhere. So through powerful questioning, Socratic questioning, Moetic questioning, which is like a concept that you're a midwife to someone's evolution, right? I like to think of myself as that. Like you have a baby inside you and I'm helping you get it out. You have great ideas inside you. I'm just supporting the natural process of you birthing those ideas.
Great. Wonderful. You have written a book, Personal Revolution book. Can you please tell me something about We
You
would love
bet.
to.
So Personal Revolution is 2 years old. I wrote it after I had about 12 or 13 years. I wrote after I had 12 years of coaching, then we had to publish it. So at that point, I had had over a decade of coaching. My rates are expensive. And I said, in my private coaching practice, I can only reach this number of people. People come to me, they don't have funds, they don't have resources. How can I reach more people? So I put together that book to be a DIY coaching guide. If you don't want to work with a coach, here's me, and here's what I see working for clients over and over again. Here are exercises. Here are questions I'm asking you. Here are actions to take. And every chapter, just like my one-on-one sessions, ends with, here are the insights you've gleaned. Here are the actions you commit to taking before the next chapter. And it's been great. It was a bestseller on Amazon in 4 different categories when it came out. It was very, very well received. And last year I was approached by Himalaya, which is a giant Chinese podcast company, to turn it into a podcast course. So it is now a podcast course as well. So you can listen to 10 episodes of 45-minute sessions with me. It's one-on-one sessions. And on Himalaya, they have an app so that you could download worksheets. There are worksheets that go with each chapter. So as you can tell, I have high expectations for you, and you're going to do work. So I give you the tools to support that work.
So this book can be used by all age groups. It is not focused on 20 or 30, for example.
Absolutely. And just like I told you, I get notes from clients like, hey, I made these changes. I'll get notes from people who bought my book. I had no idea they bought my book. I bought your book, and now look what I'm doing. I wanted to let you know. And actually, if you want, I can give you a code for your listeners so that if they want to get the audiobook, they can get the first month free.
Wonderful. Please, it will be very helpful if you can give the code.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, and you can put it in your show notes.
Okay.
If you go to Himalaya.com/revolution,
All
you'll
right.
download the app and get the podcast course. If you use the code Allison, that's my first name, ALLISON, your first month is free. You can listen to the whole thing.
Wonderful. Aren't we lucky? Thank you so much. Okay, my next question is, what is positive psychology? You mentioned it.
Positive psychology is a field that was created in the 1990s in the United States by a man named Martin Seligman. He was working at University of Pennsylvania and as a professor, and I believe he was the head of the American Psychiatric Association as well. And he took a look at the field of psychiatry, and he observed that we are pathologizing mental health. We are focusing on what's broken. We are not focusing on developing wellness in the field of mental health. We're focusing on treating illness. So it was the wellness revolution for mental health. Hey, how do we facilitate a great state of mind? How do we facilitate positive thinking? How do we facilitate goal setting, mental health as a wellness thing, not as an illness thing? And coaching really comes from that philosophy. Like I said, when I was in college, I wasn't interested in working with people who were ailing. I was interested in working with people who are well. That's not to say that people who are ailing, everybody needs help, but I didn't find that my skills were suited to that. You can see I'm big energy. It's just not my strength. So when the field of positive psychology came out and the field of coaching came out, working with people on getting more well felt right for me personally.
Okay. So the client has to be ready to a certain degree to become your student. He has to be receptive to the teaching that you require. Some kind of social stigma is still attached, that it shows that you are weak, you're not strong enough, you're going to a life coach. So that is why I was saying that a person has to be to some level of mentally ready to be receptive to see a life coach. Is that what you are telling me?
Yeah.
To mentally well. rather than people who are ailing.
Yes, completely. And I will share with you, since I've been doing this for 15 years, I've seen it evolve in the United States. Again, you're right. It was exactly the same way. Earlier in the century, 2005, 2010, it was embarrassing. It was like, also, who are these life coaches? Are they trained? How do they know what they're doing? Where's their rigorous training in class? Where are the exams that they've passed? So in the United States, it's almost too easy to become a life coach. Anyone can do it. I hold myself to very high standards of training. I'm doing continuing education. I'm a member of the ICF, the largest global association of coaches. I've achieved a PCC level of recognition with that organization. So that's me. But yeah, I don't have to do that, right? I could call myself a life coach without those credentials, but that's just not my style. Now in the United States, and perhaps India will fast forward in 5 years to this place, it's seen as an achievement, especially because there are so many executive coaches working in corporations. So if you're working in a corporation, they're like, you know what, we're going to hire a coach for you. It's kind of like, we're selecting you for leadership training. We believe in you. We want to further develop you. You don't have a problem. You're great. We're going to pay extra money for you to spend time with this expert who's going to elevate you. I will say to my clients, obviously the work is private. And they're like, no. I want people to know I'm working with a coach, right? I get that India isn't there yet, but people are proud. And, clients will tell their friends, well, I've hired this coach. I'm going to be doing a big change. I'm working with a coach. And it's kind of like I'm working with a physical trainer. I'm working to get better at my sport. I'm going to be a better runner, a better triathlete. I'm going to be a better person. It's not the perspective of illness. It's the perspective of accelerated wellness.
Becoming better. Yeah. What about applied neuroscience techniques? Are you using that also? That's a separately different field altogether.
Yeah. So when I trained with David Rock is from Australia, and he now has his own institute and teaches globally. When I went to New York University for my training, I'm so fortunate that he was there and he was doing training there. And to me, he's the leading applied neuroscience approach. So I have studied brain chemistry, brain responsiveness. And when I ask those powerful questions, I'm deliberately trying to pull out of emotion and into more cognitive areas of the brain. When you have a session with me, there are moments when I'll pull for your emotion, and there's moments where I'll acknowledge your emotion, bank it, and try to pull to more logical thinking.
Okay. I have a curious question here, Allison. What is the percentage of men versus women who come to you for coaching?
Great question. It's something I'm really proud of. It's about 60-40, 40% men and 60% women. I've observed that a lot of coaches will have a gender focus in their client base. I absolutely do not. I also see couples. I also, if I'm working with you and you live with your partner, I'll say, if your partner has any questions about the process, have them call me. If you're living at home with your mom, I just had a session and the mom's like, can we talk? I was like, of course we can talk. So I believe in you, and I believe in the system that supports you. So if you're seeing a therapist, I'll talk to the therapist. You want me to talk to your nutritionist? I will. I like to have a one team approach when I support a client.
Wonderful. So these men, are they coming to you for your career guidance, or they are also there for your emotional support? Like I have noticed, I was reading at a website that you help people conceive after 40. That's also one achievement you have under your belt.
Well, I'll try to think of some of the men who I'm working with when you ask that question. I'll work with a man who's, leading an organization. I'll work sometimes, if you follow Brené Brown and some of her work on vulnerability, she has been very empathetic to men. And I'll talk about, American men and the toxic masculinity of this country. there can be many expectations heaped on men, right? Women get pregnant. Oh, are you going to keep working? When a man has a baby, no one says, are you going to keep working? They say, of course, you've got to get a raise. You've got a baby now, right? So because of those embedded cultural expectations, they have even more pressure and thus need the support of a partner to make those changes. A safe place where they can say they're afraid, or like they don't want to make money, or they really don't want their wife to work because it makes them feel bad, or, hey, my wife's fully capable, why can't she work more, right? So a safe place where you can be vulnerable and honest. May I share one other thing that I'm proud of in terms of the makeup of my coaching practice? And this certainly right now in America, this is a really big deal. 60% of my clients, 60%, so the majority of my clients are either non-white or immigrant, meaning they or their parents are newly in the United States, or they're not in the United States. I have clients in, Panama, Switzerland, Costa Rica, all over the place, Australia. So I have a very diverse client population that does not look like me, whether you're a man, you're old. And I think a lot of coaches, when they create their practice, they're encouraged to focus on a demographic, on a particular change area. And since I just focus on transition and I have more of a broad perspective, like you say, I'm not going to be an expert in IT, right? I have more of a broad perspective that helps me help people shift in different ways. But I'm very happy to have a very diverse coaching population.
You have such a wide, experience in teaching so many clients all across the globe. What is the predominant problem that you see right now? Which emotional problem are people facing these days that comes top of your mind? Like, is it women empowerment, or is it dealing with divorce, or dealing with career? What is the in 2020? So I just want to know
when you first asked that. So I'll answer the question and then we can talk about it in a coronavirus phase right now. The first problem is fear and stuckness. Fear. Can I? Right? And to me, that's emotion. And as soon as I alleviate that strong emotional resistance, then we can just speak logically. So what might happen if you left your job? What might happen if you got a divorce? What might happen if you have a child? What might happen if you become a step parent, right? Instead of saying, well, what do you think is going to happen? Because that's really loaded. Just let's create a couple of stories, a couple of options. So I think fear is the biggest deterrent, and being able to be logical in the face of the unknown. Now, right now with coronavirus, I have chosen to start training right now on logotherapy, Viktor Frankl's concept of finding meaning and purpose in life. I think right now, when so many of us are adrift and afraid, and what we've been doing is not available for us to do, just look at the present moment. Look at the next 3 months or 6 months. What would be meaningful to you at this time? I don't know where we're going. I know you want to stay healthy. I want to stay healthy. What would give your life a greater sense of meaning and contribution? And Viktor Frankl, who conceived of logotherapy, believes that meaning comes through transcending yourself, get over yourself. It's not about you. It's about your contribution. So in this moment, what can your contribution be? I have 3 children, ages 5, 7, and 7. Right now, you better believe my energy is with them. I have cut down my practice to half time because they need me. They have no other places to go, right? So I love my practice and I love this work. And I also know I need to be there for my children in this time. That gives me a sense of meaning, and it works.
How wonderful. I think you're in a very beautiful space right now to have 3 children in your house is so wonderful.
That is very kind. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So my next question for you is, Allison, can you share some tips for our viewers how to deal with changes these days in an ever-changing world. I feel a lot of people in my country, in the world, they are afraid of change. Can you give us some tips how to be more easily be in that mental frame to adapt to change?
You see people who are afraid of change. So here's the straight talk. You can't avoid change. You can't. Anyone who thought they could, welcome to 2020 and coronavirus, right? We're all wearing the masks. We're not going out the way we used to. So you can't outrun change. You're an IT professional. Look at technology. I go to the Apple store, suddenly I've got to upgrade and save everything to the cloud. There's no getting around it, right? There's no getting around it. So change is a reality and fighting change is suffering. So the question is, how can you keep your body and your mind supple and evolving? I would encourage people to look in 3 areas: their thinking brain, their emotional feeling, and then the agility of their body. When you look at children, they're doing all 3 at the same time, right? They're feeling, they're moving, and they're thinking. So much, all 3 at the same time, so much growth. And sometimes as adult, we just start operating from here, from our heads. We aren't in our bodies as much. And sometimes through life, we've tamped down our feelings. Instead of feeling our truths, we're thinking too much. So if there's any way to get in touch with all 3 levels and say, okay, when I'm in this sense of distress, or I'm in this sense of fear, or I'm in this sense of resistance, where's that coming from? Is that my mind? Is that my body? And to implore all 3 areas, talk to all 3 areas, invite all 3 voices to your decision making. Yesterday, my husband and I were making a big decision on, potentially selling our house. And it was amazing when I clicked into my body how good I felt. And here's the incredible thing, right? We were trying to make a decision. We created an option in which selling our house and not selling our house felt equally great. So let's give it a whirl and see what the market says, right? Let's put it out there and see what happens. See if we can, sell it for a rate that we feel good about. Either way, we're going to fix up our house. If we end up living in it, it's a fixed up house. If we sell it, we'll be free and have more freedom. So to create multiple options for yourself that all feel good, right? That's magic. Because if you're resisting change, but you don't like where you are, well, that's purgatory.
Whatever you're saying makes so much of sense, Allison. I have one more question for you. How much time would a person take to actually attend your coaching and make a significant improvement in their life on average? Like I have read somewhere that it takes 40 days to change your habit. Just on some website I have. So is it true, or will I take fewer days or more time? What is the average time span when I can come to you as a student of Allison and can go out making some significant changes in my life as a life coach?
Interesting question. There's creating a habit and there's changing a habit.
Yeah.
Creating a new habit, we can do that no problem. Changing a bad habit, that's harder. That takes unlearning, right?
Absolutely.
So, when I meet with clients, I always start with an introductory session. We get to know each other. We get our arms around your goal, your objective. And it really depends on the objective. If a client comes to me and says, I absolutely want to change jobs, I want to stay in the same industry, I'm pretty senior in my industry, but I want to get a new job, to me, that is going to take 6 months. If you're younger and you want to just find a job, that's a 3-month thing. Of course, with COVID, those timeframes are delayed. If you want to decide whether or not you want to leave your partner, it depends on how much thinking you've already done. So the way my programs are organized, they're 3 or 6 month programs, and we determine what our goal is in that program. So if the goal is massive, I want to get a PhD. One of my clients wants to be a PhD. In the first 3 months, we're going to figure out what your PhD topic is. We're going to figure out what universities you might want to go to. We're going to start talking to your colleagues, and we're going to begin to apply, right?
Okay.
So whatever the goal is, we take it down and put it into 3 to 6 month chunks that can best address that goal.
So are you meeting you every day or twice a week? What is the frequency of my being in touch with my guru, my life coach?
It depends. I will see some people once a week. I will see some people every other week. Like I said, I want you to do 5 to 10 hours of work between sessions. If you're working full time, you have 3 kids, you might not have that time, but for every other week. You know what I mean? So we fit a program and a time frame that fits your life. So we have those strategy sessions, and I am available to all of my clients on email all the time. So I want people, some people I speak with every day on email. Some people will speak after big events. So I will expect to hear from you between sessions. If I haven't heard from you, I'm going to check in on you. Hey, you said you wanted to do all these things. How's it going? Can I support you? What's moving forward? And what I'm looking for is that when people are doing the things that they set out to do, they're taking a moment to acknowledge it and celebrate it and be like, I had a client, I reached out to him. Hey, I know you had a lot you were going to do between sessions. What's going on? Oh, Allison, I'm so glad you reached out. I have 2 meetings this week. I set up this call. And this guy that I really didn't want to reach out to, he's been so amazing. He's been the most useful of all. I'm so glad I did it. So do I need to know that? No. But the person needs to hear themselves having a good experience and reinforce that this action they're taking is moving them forward. Because if we can reinforce the habit as effective, then next week they'll make 4 calls. You know what I mean? So I check in all the time to keep your momentum going.
Great. I think I have come to the end of my questions. I just have one more curious question, Allison. Have you coached anybody from India, from Asia, from this part of the world?
I have a client who lives virtually, and he's often in Singapore, Thailand. I have not coached anyone from India. Okay. However, I have coached people born and raised in India, Malaysia, who've come to the United States. Okay. I have coached people who have parents who immigrated from India to the United States. I have someone who moved from Beijing when she was a child. So I am coaching a lot of people from India and Asia who are first and second generation in this country. And I'll tell you, when I look at the immigrant population, I always think these people know change. Their parents are agents of change. They came here for hope, for change. What could be more of a change than leaving your culture and coming to a new country, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So those people, they have change in their blood. When you ask the question, oh, they're stuck, they're afraid, they're resistant to change, they accept change as a requirement to a well-lived life. And they will hire a coach because they'll say, well, I'm going to change, but I want a guide who can make this change process less painful, more fun, more effective, and faster. I believe in change. Here's someone who can support my change.
Wonderful. Great. So we have come to the end of our podcast. If you want to give any message to our viewers, you're most welcome, Allison.
Well, thank you. First, I would just say thank you so much for inviting me here. Thank you for your patience with me. I know we're in 2 different time zones. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Thank you for your grace and generosity. And thank you for welcoming me into the space that you created. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to meet your community. And as a message, I would say, man, especially during this time, suffering ceases to be suffering when you find the meaning. You cannot outrun suffering. You cannot avoid change. But what you can do is welcome it as an invitation to move toward a better state. There's always better after the suffering if you let it happen. And that's what coaching is for, to have a partner as you transition through a difficulty, because ultimately you know you will be better for it.
Thank you so much. I must clap on this message. I just love your energy. It doesn't look like it's early morning at your part of the world. You look so full of enthusiasm, joy. You absolutely personify an ideal life coach. I'm so happy that I met you today. I learned so much from you, Allison. I'm sure people in India and elsewhere will enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much for coming to our podcast, and I hope to talk to you again someday. Thank you, and
Thank
have a
you so
great day
much.
ahead.
I will look forward to meeting again.